I am David Babineau, President of Destesher Appraisals Limited. Our firm, which is based in St. John, New Brunswick, has been providing real estate appraisal and consulting services to various clients in the Atlantic region since 1963. In recent years, I've had the occasion to provide valuation and consulting services to the parties involved in several specific land claims. As a result of this experience, I developed an interest and a level of expertise in the land claim process. In December of 2008, I met with Daniel Doucette, an advisor to the Listagouche-Mi'kmaq government, to discuss the terms of reference to prepare a valuation consultancy report for the LMG. The documentation he provided explained that the Listagouche-Mi'kmaq had brought a lawsuit against Canada for a series of alleged breaches. In October of 2008, Canada made a global offer of $21 million for an out-of-court settlement of the lawsuit. The valuation consultancy report was required to determine whether Canada's offer represented reasonable compensation. The subject of the report was described as the disputed lands, and it was identified on a map as 5 separate components with a total area of approximately 3,481 acres. The so-called Mann-Fraser property with 2,520 acres and the so-called Bastide property with 853 acres form the majority of the disputed lands. The so-called Mission property with 100 acres and a portion of the interprovincial road and Route 132 form the balance of the disputed lands. According to the terms of reference, the valuation consultancy report was to be completed in 2 phases. The first phase was the preparation of a highest and best use study, while the second phase was the completion of an appraisal of the current value of the unimproved land and an estimate of the loss of use. The highest and best use study was to consider the actual use of the disputed lands from the date of the alleged breaches up until the current date. In addition, the study was to consider any reasonable and probable use that may have occurred if the land had been held by the Listagouche-Mi'kmaq. In simple terms, the determination of highest and best use is the foundation of the appraisal process. It is a fundamental concept in real estate appraisal because it focuses market analysis on the subject property and allows the appraiser to consider the property's optimum use in light of market conditions. It is imperative to determine the optimum use of land because it is this utility that drives its market value. Phase 1 was to be submitted to and approved by the negotiating team prior to proceeding with Phase 2. Again, Phase 2 was the completion of an appraisal of the current value of the unimproved land and an estimate of the loss of use. The conclusions reached in Phase 1, the highest and best use study, would form the basis of both of these components. As is typical in most land claims, there are 2 generally accepted so-called heads of compensation. The first is the current market value of the disputed lands as if vacant and unimproved. The second is the monetary deficit caused by the loss of use of the disputed lands from the date of the alleged breach up to the current date. In January of 2009, we submitted a proposal to the LMG to prepare a valuation consultancy report in accordance with the terms of reference. In April of 2009, the LMG accepted our proposal and we began work on the project. Initial tasks included inspection of the land, a review of an extensive historical record, interviews with elders and other knowledgeable sources, and research of various local documents. In addition, a number of books and other publications were reviewed in an effort to understand the development of the area from a historical perspective. A local historian was engaged to assist us in the research of various local documents. For example, our review revealed that portions of the land along the Restigouche River were part of one of the world's richest salmon fisheries during the 18th and 19th centuries. A report from 1878 illustrates that there were 3 commercial fishing stations located along the shore of the disputed land. In fact, one of these fishing stations was leased by Chief Joseph Claude exactly 100 years earlier. Therefore, the highest and best use of this portion of the land was determined to be for development of a commercial fishery during this time period, and the land was valued accordingly. After conducting the necessary research and analysis, the highest and best use study was submitted to the LMG in draft format in June of 2010. In August of the same year, I met with the negotiating team to discuss proposed revisions to the Phase 1 report and review the terms of reference for completion of Phase 2. As part of the discussions regarding the preparation of Phase 2, it was agreed that participation by Dr. Carl Beal would be beneficial in the loss of use analysis. Together, we prepared an expedited version of the Phase 2 report entitled Valuation Consultancy Report, Preliminary Conclusions. This report was presented to the LMG in Moncton in April of 2011. The report provided an estimate of the current market value of the disputed lands and various estimates of the loss of use of these lands from the date of the alleged breaches up to a current date. The report also provided a matrix of value conclusions derived from various assumptions and scenarios and included a sensitivity analysis of these outcomes. To estimate the value of the land, both at the breach date and the current date, historical transactions and period appraisals were reviewed and analyzed. Additional transactions were reviewed and analyzed to estimate values of the land at the various points in time necessary to support the loss of use analysis. Many hours were spent trying to find and decipher handwritten deeds and other documents. If it appeared that a transaction might be meaningful, research into the type and use of property was conducted and the land was identified on period mapping. Clifford Lawrence from our firm provided invaluable assistance in this regard. Cliff was also dogged in his determination to track down any pertinent document. His persistence paid off when he discovered the existence of a sketch from about 1829 that further supported the Listigouche Mi'kmaq's long-standing and unresolved claim to the Man Fraser lands. As a result of the presentation in Moncton in April of 2011 and subsequent analysis and discussion, the LMG wrote to Canada that the total compensation of the claim was somewhat more than $100 million. In December of 2011, we attended our first meeting of the LMG negotiating team and representatives of Canada. The purpose of the meeting was to exchange information related to the acreage of the disputed lands, the dates of the alleged breaches, and the historic land values as the date of each breach. Canada also presented the reasoning for their original $21 million offer for the first time. Their reasoning included references to a number of historical documents which we subsequently researched and analyzed. Following our initial meeting with Canada, we assisted the negotiating team in formulating the various counteroffers that followed. We continued to provide advice and supporting documentation to the LMG in preparation for and during subsequent meetings. We also answered any questions asked by Canada's representatives and provided them with additional material as required. In my opinion, the LMG negotiating team acted in a deliberate and professional manner throughout an oftentimes frustrating process. They never wavered from their goal of achieving the best settlement possible for the community. I believe that all of the consultants were proud to be associated with the LMG's negotiating team. I know I certainly was. In closing, I want to thank the Listigouche Mi'kmaq government for giving us the opportunity to serve the Mi'kmaq in their quest for just compensation.